We've all been there. You watch a show that goes balls to the wall crazy with its action, where you can hardly find a good time to get up and go to the bathroom. Or maybe you've watched a show that makes you drink an extra glass of water in order to replenish the tears that you definitely didn't shed. These types of shows are fantastic and reasons why I absolutely love anime in the first place. But I personally find myself getting mentally drained or exhausted after watching a bunch of them in a row. Luckily, this exact situation is why what I have coined the Crunchyroll and chill anime was created. Having something that you can just turn on, not take too seriously, and just smile at can be extremely cathartic. At least it's a hell of a lot cheaper than emotional therapy as far as I know. The show known as Kokoro Connect was the most recent offender, sending me down the path of seeking out psychological relief. The show wasn't bad per se, but the constant stress, drama, and or cringe was beginning to give me gray hairs. I ended up dropping the show, and in desperate need of something to cleanse my palate, I picked up Tanaka-kun is Always Listless. The show is pretty generic in nature, focusing on a group of high school students and their mundane lives. Our main character Tanaka has one motivation in life, and that is to live the absolute laziest existence possible. Whether that means being carried around by his best friend wherever he needs to go, or standing out in the rain in hopes to evolve and become immune to water, simply because he no longer wants to carry around an umbrella. The guy puts in a boatload of work just so that he doesn't have to put in a lot of work later on. What an inspiration. Anyway, while watching this gem of an anime, a question suddenly popped into my head. What is it that makes a show feel relaxing, or dare I say comfy? And at the same time, what makes these types of shows so enjoyable? At the outset, they seem like comparingly boring versions of their action-packed, drama-filled counterparts, yet herds of sheep, myself included, constantly find ourselves coming back for more. Something about two guys sitting in a McDonald's booth for over 16 minutes had resonated deep within my soul, and I was determined to find out what it was. The first criteria that I had to consider was a show's voice acting. Just like how each of our earbuds have hopefully had the privilege to listen to this Afro man speak, listening to people or characters with super mellow voices can be relaxing in and of itself. On the other hand, you have lots of shows where everybody is always screaming. A good example of this is the early episodes of Black Clover. Literally nothing can be happening, and then Asa's over here like... Whenever I try to think of the most relaxed point of my day, I would have to give it to when I am asleep, as I am sure most other people would agree with. However, whenever I hear my neighbors turning up at 3 in the morning, that genuinely makes me pretty upset and not relaxed, as my peace and quiet is no longer with me. Therefore, I believe we can draw a correlation between relaxation and quiet. If loud noises and the sounds of cheeks clapping pull you out of your state of comfiness, then loud noises probably aren't all that comfy. There's a reason why most people don't blast heavy metal music as they lay down in bed to go to sleep, just like how I imagine most people don't watch Attack on Titan to get ready and go to bed. Calm voice acting and sound design can go a long way towards creating that sense of relaxation, so I definitely feel like this is a good point. The second bulletin on the list of amazing things can be summed up in 4 words. Not bad stuff happening. Imagine a new seasonal anime coming out about Grandma Edna. Grandma Edna loves 2 things, and that is knitting and baking cookies for her grandchildren. The entire show revolves around this premise, with shenanigans involving her family and adding a pinch of humor to the recipe. Sounds pretty wholesome, right? However, little did we know that Grandma Edna tragically falls prey to Truck-kun in the last episode, and we end the story at her funeral. Gives a bit of a different twist to the show, doesn't it? There we are, watching the ending credits of the show, and all we can think about is Grandma Edna and her macadamia nut cookies. I ended the show with higher levels of anxiety than I did before the beginning of the show, and it most likely lies due to Grandma's grim fate. Now, that isn't to say that bad things just can't happen in chill anime. I think that most chill anime are able to spin these sad situations into a wholesome conclusion, leaving the viewer not depressed. After the ending of a show, if I just feel like absolute garbage, chances are that I wasn't able to accomplish my goal of chilling, so there's that. Building off of this whole no bad stuff happening idea is the topic of the show. By topic, I mean the setting and circumstances surrounding our characters. You can have a super mundane idea like grandma making cookies, yet bad shit can always happen to grandma and change the tone of the show. However, imagine that an anime studio sets out with the intent of making the chillest show of all time, with cute girls doing cute things, the whole kit and caboodle. Do you think that it would be appropriate to throw these cute anime girls into the trenches of World War II? Probably not. The setting of war is inherently pretty stressful, and I just can't imagine the characters or viewers having a jolly old time storming the beaches of Normandy. There's a reason why lots of laid-back anime take place in super commonplace areas such as school or in a person's house. Because many of us have spent so much time in these places, the natural reaction is to open up a little bit, kick back, and go with the flow. The pacing of a show also plays a huge role in getting a viewer into that flow state. Lots of shows are created with the intent to always have something going on. However, as you and I sit in front of a computer or a phone, we know that this isn't all that realistic. Obviously, having a ton going on all the time is generally a pretty good idea, as the goal is to actually entertain the audience. This has become the common approach to making shows for a bunch of low attention span Luthers like myself, but not having something always going on is what makes these shows stand out from the rest of the pack. The story isn't in a rush to get anywhere. Long silences between two characters, panning shots of the environment and the landscape, that slow, mellow voice acting we mentioned earlier on. The slow pacing of these shows offer a, well, change of pace from the and really lets your brain take a breather. The final point we're going to hit on is the idea of processing power. Anime takes up a greater amount of focus than what one would be used to watching normal television, as us non-Japanese speakers can't just use our ears to comprehend. We need to be watching what is happening on the screen, while also needing to read the subtitles telling us what the hell is going on. Throw in a show like Steins Gate or Re:Zero, where you can blink and miss out on a subtle clue that can come back and change everything. You are constantly putting your multitasking abilities to the test, and while it may not be the most strenuous thing in the world, the stress can definitely add up over time. Watching a show that requires little to no effort in order to keep up with the story can be pretty nice, knowing that there won't be some crazy or awful realization just around the corner. Just kick back with a bottle of wine and chillax. Anyway, I have spitballed quite a few ideas that could hold the secret formula to the chill anime. However, I imagine that the truth lies somewhere in the middle of all these criteria. In order to be a chill show, it is pretty ridiculous to expect a show to meet all of these bullet points. For example, one anime I consider to be a great detox anime is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, as you could probably tell. However, I cannot remember a single time that Toru, one of the main characters of the show, used her indoor voice. She is both loud and enthusiastic, yet that didn't mean I couldn't just sit down, kick back, and watch the lovable idiot go about her biz. As I pondered more about this idea, however, something completely different caught my attention. If you take another look at the list of amazing things, there's a very subtle yet important clue to the answer we have been looking for all this time. As you can see right here, several letters stand out from their peers. Although they don't mean anything by themselves, when we permute all of them in a specific way, they actually spell out who cares. At last, I had found the answer to what makes a chill anime so enjoyable, and I was now able to move on with my life. Have a good one, everybody.